What foods seem completely fine until you realize how it's actually made. Imitation crab. It's fish paste with eggs, a bunch of additives and colorings, which makes sense. The weird part is watching the two colors of extruded paste get stretched out and wrapped around each other, like fish taffy. When I was growing up, my grandma used to make this amazing apple salad dessert thing. I loved it growing up. One year one wanted to make it for myself as an adult and I asked her the recipe. Turns out it was just apples, mayo and sugar. Reminds me of my grandpa's sweet and sour meatballs. It's meatballs mixed in a sauce that's made with only ketchup and grape jelly. It's oddly really good. My wife's aunt made a mushroom soup that she had me try. Supposed to be super healthy and tasty. I tried it, it was okay, and then she showed me the mushrooms, fucking caterpillars that had cordyceps. I'll see you all later as patient zero. As a baker, puff pastry, not because it's gross or something, it's just a long, involved process that can break you if you let it. I've made it once. Took hours because if it started to warm up I would refrigerate it again. Now I just buy it. The difference between homemade and raw store-bought is negligible with everything I tend to add to it, around it, not worth the 3 hours it took. In Poland we have a dish that's called flaki, which literally means guts. It's a soup made of cow stomach. Many people don't wanna even think about it, but I think it's delicious. Also a bit like menudo in Mexican cooking, tripas, intestines washed and emptied, soup stock, herbs and spices and hominy. Really tasty, but the intestines part, count me out. A lot of people enjoy shark fin soup and maybe some don't realize what the fishermen do to get the fins. Look up video if you want, but they bring the shark on board, cut off all the fins, and chuck it back still alive to rot and float and suffer. Orange juice, the kind in the refrigerator aisle, not because it is disgusting or anything, but because it is basically old Franken juice. All the labels such as fresh squeezed, not from concentrate, and pure are only true in the most obtuse ways. Did some IT work at the old Tropicana factory in Bradenton, FL once upon a time? Yeah. Pretty much this. Hated it because the IT office was right next to where the oranges by the truckload were dumped into big holding bins. Took me multiple showers to get the smell out of my hair every day. Kopi Luwak or weasel coffee. It is pretty much coffee. However, instead of using coffee beans that were harvested in more common ways, like hand-picking, Kopi Luwak uses coffee beans that were defecated by palm civets. Located in Indonesia, these weasel-like mammals consume coffee cherries as part of their diets and, through some very complex processes during digestion, they ferment the coffee cherries and thus defecate a coffee bean of peculiar flavors. Not only is this utterly terrifying, but unfortunately due to the demand and craze around it, producers are caging civets and force-feeding them countless amounts of cherries, basically ruining their diets and lives. I had it once, and after knowing how it was made I had to rush to the nearest restroom. It ruined coffee for me for a few years. Edit. Holy cow. Thank you all for the comments. I'm learning so much from you. I was surprised to learn from people who've worked on farms just how bloody harvesting crops is. There's not really a good way to clear out wild animals, so all of them get ripped to shreds by the heavy machinery moving through the fields. I miss being able to assume no animals died making my produce. Any fermented food. My food preservation professor said that the line between fermented and spoiled was a matter of cultural preference before the modern era. It's pretty normal to enjoy the fermented foods of your own culture and be grossed out by the foods of another's. While off-putting, I see no problems with some of the scraps we eat. It's perfectly fine to me that I'm eating the scraps of chicken and chicken nuggets, gelatin from bones and ligaments, the reject pieces of animal being used to make so many great foods or items. People want to say the natives had the right idea, using every part of the animal, but suddenly turning around to say eating black pudding is disgusting. I feel better knowing that we used every ounce of that cow. The cow didn't die in vain. The cow was used for milk. Once done with that stage, sold for meat. The meat market sells the bones for dog bones, gelatin, beef stock, literally anything else. Nothing goes to waste. Don't get me wrong, the treatment from cow to meat and then the food waste alone is problematic, but that's not what the thread is about. We use every part of every item. Excuse me, I have nuggets in the oven that are ready. I honestly don't care how something is made as long as it's safe to eat and tastes good. For instance, I don't care that chicken nuggets are made from scraps because they are safe and taste good. In fact, I think it's great that they have found ways to use the parts people normally don't like and have turned them into something many people enjoy. It would be a huge waste to throw it all out and have to make nuggets from all white meat. We'd need way more chicken farms and the prices would be a lot higher. I once was at a conference in Japan. Me and some friends went into a small little restaurant for dinner. My French colleague insisted on ordering foie gras. Besides other things, I knew the German name for this but not the French one, so I didn't know what he ordered there until I later called my boyfriend and he told me, in Germany you can't even produce foie gras due to obvious animal welfare problems with literally force-feeding geese into developing a fatty, sick liver just to eat it. My German, Polish grandmother made zernina, duck blood soup. Being a good farm wife, she would go out to the shed where my grandfather kept some of his birds, chicken, ducks, geese, guinea fowl, peahens, peacocks and a few more I don't remember. She usually was able to grab a duck on the first try and slit its throat with a straight edge razor she used for butchering small animals. She would squeeze the blood into her steel thermos bottle, cap it and butcher the duck. Sometimes a chicken. She would roast or fry the bird and make the zernina, which smells exactly like you would think boiled blood smells like but worse. It would take at least a week for the smell to leave the house. There were times when she would send me to school with her thermos bottle, filled with milk this time, to school a day or two after she washed out the blood. Of course, she also made jello salad with peas, carrots and corn in it. Also, tuna hat dish. There's no such thing as a casserole in Wisconsin or Minnesota. Its proper name is hot dish. That's a hill I will die on. Cheese whiz. It's transparent until they add the orange coloring. I don't know why, but that makes me nope out. Not like Cheese Whiz is a salad or anything, don't get me wrong, but I don't think I fully comprehended just how fake it was until I found that out. Sauce? It seems like transparent Cheese Whiz might be an urban legend that grew out of a joke from an SNL sketch about a clear Velveeta product. The ingredients for Cheese Whiz include a number of opaque substances that are not colorings. Also, the orange coloring is real annatto, just like normal yellow cheddar cheese. I worked in new product development for a bit. It's not good lol. The entire aim of the companies who we were working with was to sell less food for more, so finding any way possible to add water, air, or fiber, often all three. A whole industry dedicated to destroying food for money. That's why everyone is getting fat. The food doesn't have the same nutrient content it used to, so you have to consume more, and it's entirely on purpose. I worked as a butcher for a year, so not much phases me, but no, the off chance you actually like liver, don't ever take a look at what it looks like before it's chopped up and tried. It basically looks and behaves like blood jello with the brown mold skin around it, and that's not even counting if it's been denuded. Not a butcher but have helped slaughter and butcher cows. Livers do not bother me much, but I can't stand brain. They are just so weird. Brains are good when cooked, but I can't stand it being cooked. Gelatin comes from processing cattle faces, noses and ears still attached. I work in a tannery. The face doesn't have any viable use once tanned, so it's cut from the rest of the hide. Fun fact, the truck only came once a week and the pieces were stored outside in a half-walled shed, so during summer the smell could be rather right. Lobster. I'm not a chef, but does it really have to die like that? How hard can it be to stab it or cut its head off or something so it's not alive when thrown into boiling water? I've got no issues with eating meat, but I don't think it should be barbaric. We're an intelligent species, an immoral one. Supposedly, we should give these creatures a good quality of life and a swift, painless death, or at least try to. My 5 years/old kid is obsessed with the Discovery Channel How It's Made show, so pretty much every mass-produced food disgusts me now. Some of the ones that come to mind: frozen fish sticks, bacon, sadly, any kind of gum or candy. As a young apprentice chef in Melbourne, Australia, I worked in a French restaurant. We had to make andouillette, which is a traditional French sausage. It's made of offal, etc., and one component was the last meter of the pig's digestive system, so a tube with a little square of external flesh and an asshole in the middle of it. We had to check they were clean and rinsed and again, etc. It was fucking gross. We used to watch customers eating them and shake out heads. My favorite memory is of a time when I slapped another apprentice around the head with a wet asshole on a string and it went in his mouth. Happy times. When I was a kid, about 12-13, my parents used to compliment the turkey stuffing I used to make for having an extra zing to it, and I always got the role of making the stuffing, as opposed to helping with the turkey, etc. They weren't too pleased 10 years later when they found out that it all started when I had flaming hot Doritos and couldn't be arsed to finish the packet, so I dumped it in there, and then repeated this process every Christmas. One word: scrapple. Grew up near Philly, and now as an adult living a few states away, I am thrilled to buy my favorite brand, Habersets, from Amazon. I know it's not healthy, but it is scrumptious and takes me back to my youth. Someone told me that the reason food from restaurants tastes so good is because they don't care about your health. If you actually saw the amount of butter, oil, salt, additives and absolutely unappetizing ingredients or portions added into your food, you'd likely be disgusted, particularly with chain, lower quality restaurants. Also, working in restaurants has taken the magic out of eating out for me. I know that behind the scenes you have dubious quality, age of ingredients, dubious surfaces and tools used, plus all of the above unhealthy stuff. Eggs. Not just the hens but also the chickens that are born the wrong sex. As far as I'm aware, there is no such thing as an ethical commercial egg. I do hope I'm wrong. I buy eggs from a lady that lives 5 minutes from me. The eggs are so good and I know exactly how the hens are fed and cared for. If I asked, she would let me go back and play with them and watch her feed them. It's the best. My sister also has hens and gosh, those are her babies. She adores them. They give great eggs, and it's all very humane and sweet. Growing up I thought everyone ate scrapple. Turns out it's a local delicacy. Think bacon. But better. Yes, I know what I said. Thing is, it's comprised of all the bits and pieces that aren't good enough to make it into the sausage. Thanks to the internet you can all experience this. Just order a brick of raw scrapple, thin slice and fry. Have to cook it just right, but once you have it you'll be addicted. Just don't think about the eyeballs or God know what other kind of balls you're consuming. Danone uses carmine, a dye extracted from the dried, pulverized bodies of cochineal insects, to give several varieties of fruit-flavored yogurt their pink color. 2 flavors of Danone's Light and Fit Greed use the extract, as do 6 of its Activia yogurts, so basically they squish bugs. and put the color in the yogurt. Can't really think of any. Most of the food-making processes that people get out over are just because it looks gross. There's absolutely nothing gross about it, even with the few exceptions. It was perfectly fine before you knew about it. No reason it shouldn't be now. If it's not now, then it wasn't before either. Filipino here. Growing up, parents and relatives would prepare a dish they called chocolate meat, told to kids only. Went to the Philippines when I was 10 for my grandparents' golden wedding anniversary and watched them prepare it. There absolutely is no chocolate. They call it chocolate meat because they use pig blood, and when cooked, it turns brown. The real name is tiniguin. I haven't been able to eat it since. Foie gras. It is a specialty food product made of the liver of a duck or goose. Ducks are force-fed twice a day for 12.5 days and geese 3 times a day for around 17 days. Ducks are typically slaughtered at 100 days and geese at 112 days. Thanks Wikipedia. Pork. They are smarter than dogs, live in dark warehouses, move around with electric prods, and are mentally ill from distress. Imagine a pound where the animals are tortured and then eaten. Word that when it's a dog or a person we call it a carcass, a cadaver, and it's full of exploding bacteria at death. If it's a pig, it's just pork. Lunch. Has anyone mentioned foie gras? It's supposed to be a delicacy, but it's actually the diseased livers of geese that have been force-fed until their liver has expanded in size to cope with the abuse. These birds are chronically sick by the time they're killed, and then some human yums down the failed organ. For the sake of all that's sacred, don't buy foie gras and don't eat it. Nobody needs to eat a diseased liver. Edit. I see it has been mentioned, and I had spelled it wrong. Hastily corrected now so I don't look ignorant. Factory farming is the worst thing you can possibly imagine. If you stood inside the killing floor for just a few minutes, you'd be scarred, as well as probably a vegan. Eat whole foods, things that don't have ingredients, and whenever you can afford to, buy local, sustainable, humanely raised meat. Avocados of all things are fucking me up lately. I absolutely love them, but I've learned that their growth and production are largely controlled by the narco cartels, so, me buying a delicious avocado down at Safeway is tangentially related to some sap in Juarez getting his head chainsawed off. It doesn't sit well. Orc. It was back on the menu. Better than eating maggoty bread for 3 stinking days. That was until I realized how orcs first came to be. They were elves once. Now I prefer hobbits. They're fresh. Apparently they were supposed to be delivered unspoiled, but I was like, what about their legs? They don't need those. Fun times. People like beef, steaks and hamburgers and etc., but I'm sure the majority here haven't seen the throats of cows and pigs and etc. being slit open. It looks just how it sounds. Sometimes the bolt guns don't even work because cows have a thick skull, so they basically thrash around with blood spilling out of their throats until they die. And yeah, that looks just how it sounds too. I never give these industries my money anymore. For sake, I always just thought, wow cool, they put a snake in liquor. Like tequila with a worm. Then I found out how they add the snake. Apparently it's necessary to have the snake with its mouth open and fangs out for the aesthetic. So the 2 ways I found that they do it is either drowning the snake in the wine so it's terrified, or even better, they cool it down so it goes into a coma. They split it open and removes its insides. Then they warm it back up so that it wakes up, experiences extreme pain, and then dies. Pretty wild. Lutefisk. It's a Norwegian way of preparing fish, or in the process of preparation, becomes poisonous for a short time due to it being soaked in lye. I love fish dishes and eat fish in all methods of preparation, but something about soaking it in lye seems really out there for me personally. No disrespect to any lutefisk lovers out there. Factory farming is the worst thing you can possibly imagine. If you stood inside the killing floor for just a few minutes, you'd be scarred, as well as probably a vegan. Eat whole foods, things that don't have ingredients, and whenever you can afford to, buy local, sustainable, humanely raised meat.